contribute in a leadership role such as this that has a great impact on local, state, and national issues. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates. The League takes no responsibility. The format for this forum has been established by the League. We ask that the audience remain silent during the forum. Please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices. We ask the candidates to answer the questions with their views only and not interrupt another candidate. The candidates will be answering questions submitted by the audience. Pages Karen Linnell, a member of the League, will be circulating with paper and pencil. Raise your hand, she'll get you a card and a pencil. There are 4 candidates on the ballot for mayor. There are David Coulter, Craig Covey, Linda Parton, and Sherry A. Wells, one to be elected to a 2-year term. We will begin our forum with 1-minute opening statement by the candidates. Our timer, Tomika Turner-Graydon, will signal when the candidates have 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and when to stop. The candidates will speak in alphabetical order. We begin with Mr. Coulter.
Well, good evening, and thank you, Jerry, and thank you to the League for sponsoring this debate or forum, and thanks everyone for watching. I'm Dave Coulter. I have had the privilege and honor of being the mayor of Ferndale for the last 3 years. It has been an exciting time. 3 years ago, when I became mayor, we were faced with some pretty significant challenges. A budget deficit of almost $2 million, unexpired police and fire contracts, a vacancy rate in our industrial area of 25%, Pleasant Ridge threatening to pull out of our fire services, a lot of issues that were on the plate. I almost wondered what I got myself into, to be honest with you. But I am proud to say that almost 3 years later, I sit here today with a 2-year balanced budget and a healthy fund balance for our city, completed contracts with our police and fire departments, renewed contract with Pleasant Ridge, and a vacancy rate in our industrial area of under 10%. I'm proud of the accomplishments that we've made, but I'm excited about the things that I want to accomplish in the next 2 years, and I look forward to talking about those tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Covey.
Thank you. I held local office here in Ferndale until last December for 13 years, first as your councilman, then as your mayor, and then as your county commissioner. With Mayors Geddard and Porter, we promoted our city with new ways of doing things. We took Ferndale from a declining inner ring suburb with an empty canyon of a downtown and turned it into the thriving, gleaming, and popular city it is. We enacted green policies. We promoted diversity. We attracted new business and balanced the budgets for 11 years, even during 2 recessions, cutting costs while protecting services like police and fire. Through our embracing of diversity, we have shown the region that all people can get along and create a true community that is strong, attractive, and safe, and I ask for your votes again.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
Good evening. I thank our League of Women Voters, Oakland, for putting on this forum, and I applaud their efforts to encourage others to vote and inform voters about their candidates. Last Tuesday, September 24th, was the League's National Voters Registration Day. The theme was register in September and make it count in November. I really like that. I, too, am taking action as I go door to door visiting residents. Some of us are not registered, while others desire an absent voter ballot. I am facilitating registrations and helping to get absent ballots to residents. We are out here right now to educate Ferndale voters on our mayoral candidates, of which I am one. I feel strongly that citizens should have options when voting. I am the 4th and certainly the least known of the 4 candidates. I see myself as a breath of fresh air in that I have not been in politics. Political experience is not what I bring to this race, but then again, that is the beauty of our system. Ordinary citizens can rise up and become leaders, serving for a season, then return to their lives. What I believe I do bring to the table is honesty and good old-fashioned hard work ethic.
Thank you. Ms. Wells.
Thank you. I'd like to also point out that the League has the questions that they had submitted to us earlier, and since September 23rd has had those answers from each of us on their website and in paper form, usually at the library. So that's another resource for you or for any of your friends and neighbors that weren't able to be here tonight or don't watch cable. I want you to hire me to be your next mayor. I have the time and the flexibility of my time to give to the city, its community events and organizations. I've done it for 22 years, am doing it now, and will continue to do it. As mayor, I would have access to resources such as I was able to use when I chaired the Ferndale Charter Revision Commission for 2 years. I would also have the ability to make real changes, which would include the kind of communication we need, what I call a trialogue between the residents, the government, and the businesses. I have no other political aspirations. Thank you.
Thank you. Now is the time to answer questions from the audience that will be screened for duplication and relevancy by Judy Bateman, a League member. Unless otherwise indicated, the candidates will have 1 minute to answer, and we'll begin the first question with Mr. Coulter. With the governor's dashboard, reduce taxes and lower property values, how will you maintain the budget and continue existing services?
Well, that is the challenge of government in the year 2013, and it has been for a while. We cut $900,000 from the budget this year as a result, a direct result of the things that, Jerry, you just mentioned, declining tax revenues, the budget from Lansing that continues to balance the budgets of the state government on the backs of local governments. So we're doing the best that we can, frankly, but I think that Ferndale has done pretty well. Frankly, I think we've done better than most communities around here. We do it by looking for any kind of efficiencies or savings that we can in the budget. We scrutinize the budget very, very carefully. But beyond that, we're looking at collaborations with our neighbors. We're talking with Hazel Park about a fire authority that would save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We maintained the fire service contract with Pleasant Ridge, which saved about $250,000 for our residents. So we're trying to think out of the box and looking at all opportunities to make sure that we can balance our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Covey.
Thank you. When I left the mayor's office 3 years ago, I left the city with a $4 million rainy day fund. Since that time, the millage rate has gone up, and it's easier to balance a budget when you raise taxes. In the 11 years that I was on city council and as mayor, we balanced the budget 11 years in a row. We cut millions of dollars. And it's very, very important that you cut waste and cut spending, especially in an economy like we have right now. What I would do is begin to cut some of the waste that I think is happening with the city. In the last year or so, we've spent $50,000 on a Woodward alternative analysis transit study, $9,000 for a new logo, $45,000 for Plant Moran consulting on the new courthouse, $39,000 for parking management services, parking studies, a parking structure feasibility study. What the city has to do is focus on the services. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
Well, I guess we'd have to analyze, how we're spending our money. I know at my house, when things aren't the right thing to spend money on, we cut them out. So we'd have to analyze these things. Having not been mayor or in that position, even on city council, I'm not always privy to all the ins and outs of that, but it doesn't take me long to learn. So we would just have to cut out the extras that aren't necessary, things that we really don't need. And then I think that our police force should experience no cuts. If that is any issue with anybody, I think they need to be strong.
Thank you, Ms. Wells.
Yes. I have attended virtually every city council meeting, missed 2 in the last 4 years. So I've been very familiar, those you can watch on video, very familiar with all the things that the staff has been trying to do, the different departments that bring in grants. The governor has this EVIP hurdle that they have them go through. It takes a lot of time. This includes this big dashboard thing. And our staff has done every one of those on time to do that. The governor has wanted collaboration. Well, Ferndale has been collaborating with other communities for decades and have been talking with these communities to do so. I showed in 5 city council presentations of mine the way we citizens can help the city bring in $187,000 by recycling everything we possibly can. I want the recycling information to be on every refrigerator. I've been told it costs too much.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Covey. Why was the type of parking system installed? Is it a blight on our city? And there are several questions in regards to the fees and so forth. So I will give you a minute and a half to discuss all of the problems with the parking system.
Thank you. The parking system was installed in February, and immediately when some of the chaos began, the very first thing I did was call Bob Bruner. Bob Bruner was our city manager for 3-4 years before the current manager, and he's right up the street in Birmingham. And I called Bob, told him what was happening, and he said, why didn't anybody call me? We tried this in Birmingham. What they did there was they created a pilot study. They took one lot, cut off the meters, installed this same kiosk system. It was so unpopular that they removed it within 30 days, put the meters back. That, to me, is the biggest mistake I've seen the city make in 25 years that I've lived here. I have the directions here on how one goes about parking their car. So the first thing you do is you pull into your space and you look at the number. You get out of your car and you memorize a 4-digit number. Then you look around till you find the kiosk system. It might be a quarter block away, maybe a half a block away. So you walk up to the system. Hopefully it's daytime and hopefully it's not raining. Hopefully you don't have a child in your arms. You go to the system and you push a button. That wakes up the system. A few seconds later, you push in your number. Hopefully you've remembered your 4-digit number of your parking space. Then it asks you whether you want to pay for parking or add more time. So you push that button. After you push that button, then it says go ahead and pay. So you pay with money or a credit card. You could use your cell phone. So you put that money in, and then it goes through some more, and then it comes back and it says, okay, do you want a receipt? Oh, I'm sorry, I've run out of time. I haven't been able to finish parking my car. Sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
Why was it installed? I think things may have started happening back 4 years back. There was talk of a parking garage. Business owners would have really, I think, liked that, and a lot of other people. At any rate, it's been installed, and it's not popular. I would say, most of the people that signed my petition to run for mayor, they all disliked it. And so I'm going on that alone to realize that there's something wrong here. And if you would stand by the meters and see the people coming to it, visitors from Royal Oak, Oxford, wherever, and you see them all like scratching their head trying to figure it out, you would go, do you like this? And they would say, no, we don't really get, why these are here, and these are hard to use. So it's not being monitored very well, it seems, either, and enforcement is soft, so I'm not sure what that's all about. I think if we have a system installed, we should be using it to our advantage, and people that are not paying should be penalized. Many people park and they just get out of their cars and they don't pay. I've seen them do it, or they've admitted it. So it is a fiasco, and I think that it needs to be reversed. And I'm sad to say that, but it's just something that needs to be changed, and we need to do something different.
Thank you, Ms. Wells.
I have attended every DDA board meeting for 4 years, and I'm not on that board. I was on the parking committee for a part of that time. One of the things I did, as did another person, we called cities. We said, what system do you use? What are the positives? What are the negatives? And what kind of service are you getting from the company you bought it from? So there was plenty of research that was done in this. And consultants, and former city manager Bruner was very good at hiring consultants. That was apparently a complaint, certainly one I heard lots of. The old meters were being robbed. You couldn't get parts for them. Because they were being robbed, the city did not know how many people were really parking, so they ordered only half the number of stations that they really needed to use, which is why once they found out by just the figures coming in of how many people were parking and using the new parking, they then knew how many stations they needed. So they got them. They have been making tweaks, and bigger than just tweaks, and straightening out the problems with them. I got trained in how to use them. I parked my car in my driveway and walk all over the place, but I still got trained, and I'm helping people, and I'm saying, Did you know that you could go in and out of our many wonderful stores here, and if your time expires, you can extend it at any pay station anywhere in the city? And they smile and they say, no, I didn't know that. I get people most of the people I talk to are happy with it, and I've heard people praise it.
Thank you. Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget that 3 years ago, the two overwhelming complaints we got about parking was, A, there wasn't enough, and B, you only could use quarters in these old meters that were often broken. We had to do something about our parking system. Keeping the old meters was not an option. So I keep waiting for candidates to give us a better option, but the DDA did study the parking issue for a number of years. They researched it very well, and they found that this particular system is in use in Ann Arbor, and they like it. They just ordered 80 more units. Lansing likes it, and they're ordering more units. Grand Rapids is installing it as we speak. I'm not saying there haven't been problems with it, but I'm saying that we had to address the overwhelming issues that we had of parking, especially on the weekends, and the fact that you could only use quarters. So now we have a system that you can use any kind of coin or dollar or credit card, or more popularly, the app on your phone. We're now the #1 Park Mobile app using city in the country as a result of that. So your options are greater, but even better than that, it was designed to raise the revenue that we need to someday build a parking deck, and it is doing exactly that. We raised 20% more revenue in August of this year than we did in August of last year. The system is operating as designed after an initial rollout that admittedly did not go well. But we have increased the speed of the machines, we've increased the number of the machines, and frankly, single meters are going to be extinct in cities in the next 10 to 15 years. We had to do something, and this is what we've chosen to do.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ms. Parton, and we'll be back to a minute. And I also have several questions, but they all read the same. Will you ask for an extension of the Headley override, and should we vote for it when it expires in 1 year?
I would ask for an extension, yes. I believe if you've lived in a residence for long enough and committed to that you should get a break. So, yeah, should we vote on it? I think it's a good thing to vote. I think it's good that everyone gets their opinion to be made known on something. So I think that if it got voted on, it would do, I'm not sure how well. It depends on the neighborhood. If a lot of people have stayed, then it would work out. They'd want to keep that going. So if not, then it would get overridden. So.
Thank you. Ms. Wells.
Okay. I believe what the question is asking is the extension of the Headley override, the one that did bring in some tax money to help the city manage itself. All of us have taken a hit from factors far out of our control. The residents have businesses, smaller businesses, and the city government have. The ones who've taken the biggest hit are the ones who no longer work for our city government because of all of the cutbacks. If the economy improves, then we may not need it, or we may not need as much of it. If the economy doesn't, then the city's in the same boat that the rest of us are, and we all need to row together. And in that case, we may have to ask for it again from the citizens, and we may have to vote for it again. There's just some hard things going on right now.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter.
Well, I want to clarify one thing. The election wouldn't be in a year. We passed the original Headley in 2011, and it was a 5-year Headley. So we're really 3 years out from having to decide what level of Headley, if any, we need again. So I don't think we're there yet. We gave ourselves 5 years to try to dig ourselves out of this huge financial hole that the economy and the state helped cause for cities like Ferndale. The residents allowed the city to tax up to an additional 5 mills, which we've never had to do yet, and we don't anticipate doing. But we did it, I think, for a very sound reason. And, I don't know, Linda, what your view on it was, but I know the other three, all three of us, supported the Headley in 2011 because it protected fire services and police services, which is where the vast majority of those monies went to. So in 3 years, when we're looking at a budget and trying to figure out how we're going to pay for our police officers and our firefighters and the operations in City Hall, we may have to look at some sort of an extension of the Headley again. At what level will be, better known as we see how much we can pare from the budget now. So certainly open to it. I supported it before, as at least 3 of us did before, because it protected the basic level of services that I think this community expects and wants.
Thank you, Mr. Covey.
You know, the Ferndale residents and voters are very, very generous. We have always supported the tax increases that have been requested, whether it's for the schools, the library, the zoo, on and on. But it is to the point where we have one of the highest millage rates in the county. I looked at my summer tax bill. It was up 20% in the last 3 years. It's up to 53 mills. I don't mind paying taxes, but I think people want to know that the money they are giving to the city is being used well and properly and not spending on consultants and pet projects. We want the basics. We want our garbage picked up. We want the police to come when we call. We want the roads to be repaired when they're ready to be repaired. We want our sewers and drains to work. But I do think, again, that there has been an increase in bureaucracy in this town the last few years. They've added new staff, a new innovation officer, new HR officer, special events director. And I think people will vote for these millages to keep the services that we need and that we have. But I think the council and the mayor and all elected officials have to watch the people's pocketbooks, because they are not limitless, and people are suffering in this community. The Great Recession is not quite over yet. We have young people moving here. We have seniors on fixed budgets, and elected officials owe it to the people to watch every nickel and every dime.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Ms. Wells, and I'm going to again consolidate 2 questions. Is there a foreclosure problem in Ferndale, and has code enforcement been too aggressive?
There's a foreclosure problem everywhere in this economy. The county treasurer has been doing a lot to prevent the foreclosures. If the concern is really a foreclosures, meaning a vacant house and something that's not being dealt with, that I think is the real question. In going around talking to residents, I'm finding that some residents believe that the code enforcement is ridiculously aggressive, and other members of the city are saying, why don't they do anything about that house 2 doors away? So what I've been told, because I did look into this, just call code enforcement, tell them the name of the address of that particular house and your concern, and they will do their best. But I was thinking today I'd like to check to see if maybe the code enforcement officers don't each have their own little section that they go around to various parts of the city, each of them, rather than the same ones again.
Thank you. Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we have the same number of employees at City Hall today as we did 3 years ago, other than the 4 firefighters that we brought back from the SAFER grant. So we have the exact same. We're not growing the bureaucracy. Some of those people that you call bureaucrats are our code enforcement officers. By the way, I think bureaucrats is a really insulting term to use for the good men and women who work for our city and work really hard and who haven't had raises in many, many years. And some of them are code officers, and I think they do a really good job. And they have a tough job, because there are parts of our city that, because of foreclosures and because of increased rentals, need increased attention. But I think they manage and balance that very well with the concerns that other neighbors have. One bad house can ruin a whole neighborhood, so it's really important to stay on top of code enforcement. But I think we've been very fair to people. We give them more than enough time to improve their properties and do the things they need. So I think we've been very fair in terms of our code enforcement in Ferndale. And as a result, I think our neighborhoods look better than ever.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. I'm sorry, Mr. Covey.
Code enforcement is very important. I don't think it's too aggressive. It's something that keeps the city looking good. It helps protect neighborhoods. We certainly had a housing crisis. The entire country went through that. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and Ferndale home values are slowly beginning to go up. And I didn't actually use the word bureaucrats. I used the word bureaucracy. And I can give some examples of things that have taken a whole lot longer to go through. I admire the staff, and I am appreciative that some of them have gotten substantial raises. The innovation director, I think, got a very substantial raise. I believe that there are other staff in the City Hall that have gotten big promotions. And I appreciate the 4-year contracts that you've given, signed over for our unions. But these are things that are going to cost money. And I think we have deficits coming in 2015 and 2016 that are going to probably require the city to ask for that Headley override once again. And again, I just repeat that I think it's very, very important that we watch the dollars and go slowly. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
I think we've come a long way from the foreclosures, happening in our city. It looks like things are on the upsweep. I do not think code enforcement is too aggressive. I think actually it needs to be a little bit more aggressive. Some of the neighborhoods have rats. In the northeast section of town, it seems like there are people who might have a shed that needs to be cleaned up or whatever, and that would eliminate the rats for all the people in the surrounding neighborhood. And even on my own street, believe it or not, I live in the middle of town, there are rats. So yeah, the code enforcement is very important, and I think maybe we need to do a little bit more of that. To eliminate, wait, I'm not done. To eliminate, I have more time. To eliminate the rat population, because it is a problem. They smell, they're yucky, and nobody likes them.
Thank you.
They should eat some worms. I don't know.
Got some seconds.
Next question, we'll start with Coulter,
Now you got the stuff.
and we'll make this in 1 minute, and there's no way you're going to be able to answer in a minute. What is your position on decriminalization of marijuana? Will you support what the voters decide?
The voters will decide. Let me say, Ferndale has a great history of political activism, and I'm proud of that. And as mayor, I fully support the citizens' rights to do that. There's been some insinuation that the city's trying to limit political speech, and nothing could be further from the truth, period. I do think residents need to understand, as the backers of this petition have said, that this is a symbolic ordinance that's meant to send a message to somebody, to Lansing, I guess, which is really where the message needs to be directed, because drug laws in Michigan are made at the state level and not at the local level. But let me just say, as mayor, I haven't spent a lot of time on this issue one way or the other, because, as I've said, I'm focused on trying to bring businesses to town and improve our neighborhoods and watch the budget and still offer the services that our residents expect. I think those are the things that people elected their mayor to do. So if you want to talk about sending a message, and it's important to send the message, and I applaud the folks that want to do that, but the message that I'm trying to send is buy a house in Ferndale, open a business in Ferndale, or come visit Ferndale. That's what I want everyone in Michigan to know.
Thank you. Mr. Covey.
Thank you. I think symbolism is very, very important. The City Council enacted a symbolic move against the Iraq War 10, 12 years ago. We couldn't stop the war, but the people of Ferndale wanted us to make that message known. Since President Richard Nixon started the modern war against marijuana 43 years ago, hundreds of billions of dollars have been wasted on that prohibition. Lives have been ruined. It costs society, in young people, in costs in police enforcement. The city of Ann Arbor decriminalized marijuana 40 years ago. And look at the city of Ann Arbor. It's probably one of the nicest towns in our state. It has the lowest unemployment rate. It has high property values. The schools do very, very well. So if Ann Arbor can decriminalize marijuana 40 years ago, I think a progressive town like Ferndale can stand up to the sheriff of Oakland County and the prosecutor and vote yes on Prop A. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
My position on that is that it really is a state-federal issue. But if I were to go into the booth and vote on it, of course I would vote no, because it sends a message to our kids that it's okay or that it's being accepted in our city. And we have those drug-free zone signs put up all over near our schools, and it just kind of comes in conflict with that. I think we really need to spend more time and attention and care on problems in our own city, like the noise pollution. We need to change the threshold of the decibels that are acceptable from some of those, places that are just keeping residents awake at night. We have high water bills we need to address, and things like that. So, what was the other thing? Oh, the meters. Yeah, we need to get rid of those and come up with something that people will like, our residents will like.
Thank you. Ms. Wells.
As an attorney, I have watched the amount of resources, as was stated, the prosecution, the prison system, where we are supporting all these people who, for this minor thing, should be out working and supporting themselves. I attended a full-day seminar at Wayne State University Law School on this within the past few years, and the pharmacist there said, it is not a drug. I don't think it leads to drug use any more than a beer can make someone an alcoholic. You've got an addictive personality or you don't. The lack of medical use has been sad with the number of people who have died when they're having reaction to chemotherapy and choked to death. There is one thing I want to look into more, though, and that is the effect of the marijuana smoke on people with asthma and who have to pass truck driving and airline pilot tests. I want to look into that more before I make any final decision.
Thank you. Next question will start with Mr. Covey. Many of our streets and water mains need repair, and our water bills are high already. What would you do to correct those problems?
Bob Porter, who was our mayor a decade and more ago, led the effort back in the 90s to pass the bond issue, and that was one of the smartest things that the city ever did. We repaired a lot of our local streets. We repaired a whole lot of our sewers and water mains. We are getting close to the end of the time when we need to start thinking about doing that again. That's, again, why I worry so much about the high millage rate now, because we're going to have to go to the voters and ask for support for millages, bonds to do repair to the sewers. Water bills are out of control. We have the highest water bills in the city. That has to change. We actually get fairly decent price from the city of Detroit, but the city tacks on extra fees. They've doubled that $33 fee, and there's no reason that we should have the highest bills in the city. I'd like to see us go to a place in the summer where we charge half as much for sewer because we're watering our lawns and our ponds and our swimming pools. I don't have a swimming pool, but somebody does.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
The streets needing repairs, or the water system needing repairs, I'm not that familiar with where the money comes for that. I would hope that the money that is there is being spent toward that. If we need to look at where we're spending other monies and divert it to that, then that needs to be done because it is a problem. Not having been mayor, I'd have to be able to look into all that. The high water bills, again, that's something that I think as you're in that position, you're able to look into that better and see what that's all about. I almost propose to let people dig their own wells to water their gardens and things and outdoor, grass to save them some money. Why not take advantage of the resources that are right underneath us? So anyway, yeah, I'd look into, maybe allowing that to happen, and that would help people's water bills, along with finding out why we have such high water bills.
Thank you. Ms. Wells.
I believe the street repair and sewerage stuff, that a lot of what the city's been doing is piece by piece so that it doesn't wind up all having to be done all over again at once. The water bills is a separate issue. A resident called me and told me, because not all of us have this high water bill problem. There are a lot of us with two people in the household that have the same approximately $100 every 3 months, but then there are other people that have $300 and $400. She told me that she sat down with our recently retired finance director. They went back 4 years on her water bill record. They found that she's had the same pattern of use for the whole 4 years. They did find out that it were 15 months of estimated bills, and that's too long. But the key was somewhere the computer was charging her a higher rate of usage than our rate is. And once that was taken care of and the penalties and late fees were taken off, her bill is back to the same as anybody else with that size household that she had and that much usage.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter.
Thanks. Well, let's talk about the streets for a minute. You know, we're an older community, and nobody from Lansing or Oakland County is going to come to our rescue and help us pave these streets. So we did tax ourselves a bond for infrastructure a number of years ago, and that's why we have, I think, the decent streets that we have. That bond is going to expire in a few years, and we're going to have to think about what level of infrastructure investment that we want to make again. I don't think we'll need the same amount that we did last time, because we did a really good job. Bob Porter and others did a really good job. But we'll have to do some level of support, and that will be up to the voters, and that is coming soon, and that is going to be a priority for the city. In terms of the water, remember this about water bills. There are isolated incidents of people whose water bills are odd, and we encourage people to come to City Hall and straighten that out, because usually you can. But keep this in mind. We don't make a dime on the water bills for any other purpose but to run the water system. And to make sure that no monies are being diverted, we did a complete audit of the system in the last year at the behest of Councilman Martin, and fortunately we found out that our system is clean, that we don't divert any monies from that, and we are only using the monies from the system to run the system. The city doesn't make a nickel on water.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ms. Parton. Describe the fundraising work you have performed for local Ferndale communities or charities.
Describe the fundraising work I've done? With PTA, I ran the room where people get prizes at the June fair. And so that, I guess, is considered fundraising. I had to buy all the prizes, and then I would have to establish a certain ticket price for each one, and the kids come and get their prizes at the end of the day. That's one of my fundraising things I did. It seems like an odd question. Anyway.
No.
Okay. Then.
I have it 3 different times.
Are they all being asked this question?
Question.
Fundraising. Okay, so this is to say what fundraising things would I do for the city? Or you're asking what I've done, right? So that's really not that much of a fundraising situation. But anyway. I don't really have any other things that I've done for fundraising that I can think of offhand.
Thank you, Ms. Wells.
I have written grants. Many years ago, I visited every school in our district, and the grant school was the one that had the landscape, the only one with landscaping that looked like an inner city school. I wrote a grant for trees and worked to help plant those trees with the community and raised money for that, as well as getting the grant. And half of my trees are still alive. I drive by there now and then to check on them. I pulled off the Family Fundale this spring, and it did have a nonprofit beneficiary, which is one of the things that the DDA always does. That was successful. I've worked at the Ferndale Rotary Club. We're always doing fundraising for scholarships and stuff for children. Have I done a pub crawl or anything like that? No. But I have done a lot of the volunteer work that has gone into some of these things that are fundraising. So as a volunteer, I'm always out there working.
Thank you. Mr. Coulter.
Well, one of the things when you get into an office like this is you get invited to participate in a lot of events, a lot of them that raise money, and I'm proud to have participated in many events in this town, not only since I've been mayor, but before I was mayor. In fact, one of my favorite is the first year that I became mayor, I instituted a fundraiser where we bought backpacks full of back-to-school supplies for all of the kids in our Head Start school. A lot of those kids don't have the resources that they need to have all the supplies and to start at school on an even keel and an even footing with the other kids. So I did a backpack program for the Head Start students. But the other great thing about Ferndale, thank goodness, because I'm not an event promoter, is that we have so many wonderful hardworking volunteers in this town who have created so many events. All the best events in this town have been created by, somebody that volunteered, whether it be the DIY or the Pride Fest or all of the wonderful events that we have. So we're very blessed in this town to have really hardworking volunteers who do a lot of fundraising and special events for us.
Thank you. Mr. Covey.
Thank you. I agree with the mayor. I think this town has set a tone. We've set examples, and that's why we get so many people who volunteer. In my own case, I mean, I guess I do promote events. I started the Ferndale Blues Festival about 14 years ago. The annual Ferndale Pub Crawl 17 years ago. I've been on the board of the Ferndale Community Foundation. I suspect you do charitable stuff too, your church and things like that. I've raised money for the police auxiliary through the pub crawl, raised money with other folks for Fern Care. In the last 17 years, I've actually raised approximately $250,000, not counting AIDS prevention education. And I know, Mayor, you've raised money for AIDS prevention as well. So I think the question was probably getting at charitable works, and it's what makes this town as cool as it really is.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ms. Wells, and this is a TIFA DDA question. If mass transit M1 project comes through Ferndale, would it be better off to have a TIFA or the DDA? And what is your feeling if the DDA is doing too much or not enough?
That's 2 or 3 questions.
You got 1 minute to...
It seems like they're all related to the DDA. In other words, do you want the DDA to take over the M1? And then the other question is the DDA too much or not enough?
The DDA and the M1 are never going to be one and the same. The DDA is something that is working with the M1 project because it does affect our downtown area. And mass transit and alternative forms of people moving around so that we have less reliance on cars is certainly something that will benefit our downtown. As I said, I've attended every DDA board meeting in 4 years, been working on some of their committees as well. The DDA is so poorly understood, and I would enjoy giving a layperson's talk about the DDA so that people would understand it better. I've gotten a great deal of respect for the people who work there and their talents and abilities and their depth of knowledge. I do have some policy ideas that as mayor I would work to incorporate in there, but I have seen the DDA do a lot of work that really isn't something they're over issues that they don't have control of, but they're doing all the homework, or a good share of it.
Thank you. Mr. Coulter.
Well, to the extent that the question was about mass transit and M1 and those sort of things coming up Woodward, I mean, when I ran for county commissioner in 2002, I was a big proponent of increasing public transportation and mass transit in our region, and I'm so grateful that finally, 13 years later, we're actually starting to move down that path, and I think it's really exciting. It's really exciting in particular for a community like Ferndale, who has Woodward as its main artery. I think the economic development that's going to be created as a result of transportation is going to be tremendous. Not only that, but the jobs that it will bring are going to be a huge opportunity, and we need to be ready for it. The funding is not going to come through the DDA, so I think that the questioner was a little confused on that. There's a regional transportation authority that has been created to figure out the funding mechanism for transportation in our region, and that hasn't been decided yet. But however it gets funded, it needs to get funded, and we need to have better mass transportation and public transportation in Ferndale. It is going to benefit our community greatly.
Thank you. Mr. Covey.
The mayor's right, and we have all worked towards moving this region as fast as we can to public transit. And I worked with the city council and the county commission on getting complete streets. The DDA won't be paying for it. The DDA does a good job of promoting the downtown, and the TIF is a little tax capture that they get. Ferndale cannot pay for mass transit. That's one thing we do not have the money for. This has to come from the federal government, and it's way behind, and it's been stymied by folks in Oakland County and also in Lansing. So it'll benefit the DDA because, as the mayor said, when it happens, and I hope it happens in my lifetime, but I'm not going to hold my breath, we will see major development and population increases. And it will be a cool time when we finally have some public transit up and down Woodward Avenue.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
I'd like to see more done with mass transit. One of my sons takes the bus all the way up into Pontiac and then east to Oakland University, and I think that's really great. He doesn't have to buy a car, doesn't spend money on gas. Of course, we're all about economics at our house, and I would like to see the mass transit be improved. I don't know, again, the part about the DDA being involved, what that is all about. It sounds, like some political thing I'm not aware of, but I'm all about mass transit. I believe in it. It saves, the environment to a point where some of these buses are electronic and they don't let off as much pollution, and I'm a firm believer in mass transit.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Coulter. What type of work have you done to support diversity? Will you continue to support diversity in our community? And is there an issue?
Fortunately, it is a lot less of an issue than it was back when I know Craig and I and others started getting involved here in town a while ago. So I think it's an issue only in that you have to be mindful of the diversity and all sorts of diversities, by the way. We are a diverse community. We are a diverse community by age and by race and by sexual orientation and in a number of other ways. And we need, when we're planning to do things in this city, we need to be mindful of all of the various segments of this population, and when we're making decisions, we need to reach out and make sure that we're inclusive of all of those groups of people, so that when we do make decisions for the city, that it's decisions that are made in the best interest of everyone in the community. So I'm very proud that this is a diverse and tolerant community. By the way, I'm also proud that we added for the first time this year domestic partner benefits to our employee City Hall workers benefits. I'm very proud of that. It was a long time in coming. So yeah, very supportive of diversity, obviously.
Thank you, Mr. Covey.
Support for diversity has been a core value of mine since I was a teenager, and I've strived for decades to support it. And the mayor is exactly right. Sometimes it's a code word for the gay lesbian community. I started doing gay rights. I'm embarrassed to tell you it was 1975. I'm older than I look. But, and I know the mayor, and I also we're always admiring of Martin Luther King. Our town is diverse in the sense of we have gay lesbian populations, we have all different age groups, and I agree with you, Mayor, we do have to be mindful, again, in terms of costs and keeping the city affordable. We have middle class people here, we have working class people, we have retired people, we have young people. And I think it's absolutely critical that we keep this town the flavor that it has, which is affordable. If you get to be real successful, then you can go to Birmingham or Bloomfield Hills or Huntington Woods. But I think we have to keep Ferndale the colorful, interesting place it is. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Parton.
Let's see. What have I personally done to support diversity? The only thing I could say is that I believe that we are to love our neighbors, we love ourselves, and teach my family that, my kids, and that's just what we believe. And so I'm a firm supporter of loving everybody without any kind of judgment or anything like that. So that's my support of diversity.
Thank you, Ms. Wells.
The diversity means all kinds of people, as the mayor said. I got a copy of the census statistics to show what populations and such Ferndale does have, because I want to examine the boards and commissions. For the most part, a lot of those are appointed by the mayor. And I want to examine them to make sure that for openings, that some of the more diverse of us are allowed, invited to become part of those boards and commissions. When I was on the Charter Revision Commission, I made up a chart using the resources of the Michigan Municipal League, which I am so eager to use again, and I can't unless you elect me mayor, to make a chart of all the different kinds of civil rights provisions that were in the state of Michigan. And one of them was 1927 Ferndale City Charter. Religion and political beliefs were not to be discriminated against on those bases. So we've been doing this for a long time.
Thank you. Next question, I will start with Mr. Covey, I believe. How do we keep business, families, and seniors in our community and yet encourage the businesses downtown?
Sure, you can have both. And I think the answers are very similar. I think there's nothing business-friendly about having the highest water rates in the city. I don't think it's supportive of senior citizens to have the highest water rates in the county, I meant to say. I think the way that you support business, and I've always been a strong supporter of the Area Chamber of Commerce, I've won awards from them, is to try to cut back on the bureaucracy, keep costs low, keep millages as reasonable as possible. And I think those same things support seniors here. But, you know, the largest subset of population in Ferndale now are young people. And I remember when I first ran for city council, there was a fear that there weren't going to be any young families in Ferndale. Well, that's certainly not a problem. We have lots of millennials here. But millennials don't always have the income that they can afford to pay the taxes and buy a home in the city. And so I think it's important to be frugal to protect the businesses and the low-income folks.
Thank you, Ms. Barton.
Could you repeat the question again, just so I can get it? It'll take up my time, I don't mind.
Let me get the right one. How do you keep business, families, and seniors in our community and yet maintain the businesses downtown?
Okay. That's a kind of a complicated question. I mean, we really want Ferndale to continue to, you know, be a family city, I think. If you don't have families, you don't have kids, you don't have a school district, you don't have schools, you know, so we always want to keep that going. The businesses that come in, you know, I think that we probably need to get more that are somewhat, in a sense, family-oriented. I know we do tend to have a lot of, you know, places to eat and places that serve drinks and all, and that's not a problem. It's just so long as there's a good balance between all that. It'd be nice if we did get some other businesses that were more geared toward, you know, families. Like, you know, I know we have some ice cream places here, but beyond that, you know, there's other types of businesses that would, you know, that families would enjoy going to or that they would frequent.
Thank you. Ms. Wells.
I got very tired of the misperception that downtown Ferndale is nothing but bars. And that is why I put together this family fun day that was very successful in April. It was wonderful that Saturday afternoon to see all of these families and strollers and people walking with their kids all over downtown Ferndale. The businesses, of course, worked with this. They emailed their whole list and invited people down for that. So it wasn't something I did all by myself, but I did initiate that just to prove that Ferndale does have other things than bars. The DDA Business Development Committee is stressing seeking out varied types of businesses, and I hope they're going to aim for more of the everyday kind of things that people used to be able to come downtown for instead of going to shopping malls. I believe there should be a trialogue, a communication between businesses and citizens and the government to see all of our needs get heard, and that kind of communication gets invited, and that we reach for what people want to work together on.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter.
Yeah, thank you. You know, when I became mayor, I said I wanted Ferndale to be the friendliest, easiest place to open or grow a business in Oakland County. And I said that not just for the sake of the businesses, but because attracting businesses and the jobs and the revenues that they also bring is critical to growing our tax base here, supporting our outstanding services, and attracting residents and visitors to our city. So I think a focus on attracting the jobs and the tax base that businesses bring, and not just businesses downtown. Let's not forget that we have a commercial and industrial sector of town that had been neglected for a lot of years. So I created the Mayor's Business Council, which focused exclusively on this area. And I'm really excited to say that as a result of that, we've seen a 35% increase in non-residential investment in the last year alone. Non-residential investment in the industrial area, 35% increase in the last year alone. These people are growing jobs, they're expanding our tax base in town, and when they pay more taxes, and when they pay more water bills, we pay less. So that's the key to reducing the rates for everybody.
Thank you. Next question will start with Ms. Parton, and we've had these long, drawn-out questions, so I'll give you an easy one.
Oh, great.
If elected mayor, would you run for higher office during your term?
No. I can give you a clear no. No.
Ms. Wells?
As I said, I have no further political aspirations. I won't say higher office because I think being mayor is a very high office.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
I agree. I love this job. I was fortunate enough to be the Oakland County Commissioner and represent Ferndale and Hazel Park and Royal Oak on the Oakland County Commission, and I never imagined that I would like to do anything but that. But fate has landed me in this job, and no, I love being where I'm at, and I'm very happy.
Mr. Covey.
It's unanimous. None of us will be running for higher office. I've been there, done that, and this is where I belong, and this is where I stay.
Thank you. Now we'll go back to the difficult ones.
Oh, good.
With Ms. Wells.
Yeah, thank you.
What boards or positions have you served in the past 5 years to prepare you for being mayor?
It is interesting that the question is limiting to 5 years because the Ferndale Charter Revision Commission was a little more than 5 years ago, but I led the drive for that. I presided over it for 2 years. I did a lot of work out of sight every evening so that we didn't have to pay the attorney to come down. That kind of presiding, being on a team, and that was a very different kind of team than most of us ever get to be on, was an amazing experience, and I haven't stopped since. There's a lot of things that we got accomplished out of that Charter Revision Commission that even if we didn't pass some charters, a lot of the work we had done was later, piece by piece, passed by the citizens of here. I've been very involved in the community. Like I said, I've attended every DDA board meeting for 4 years, all but 2 city council meetings in 4 years, as well as a lot of the community work that I have done. I've had people call me with questions, and even though I'm not elected, I look into them for them.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter.
So many. I moved here 22 years ago, and I joined something right away. Jerry Kulik, who some of you know as the name on our community center, I worked on her task force that helped figure out where our community center should be. I've served a term on the library board where we initiated the process that got the renovations to the library started. Obviously, as I said, I've been an Oakland County Commissioner for 8 years and loved that job. I was the Democratic leader in Oakland County for 6 years and enjoyed shepherding issues important to the south end of Oakland County. And obviously now I'm the mayor, and one of the things I discovered when you're mayor is you're automatically on a whole bunch of boards. So I'm not even going to bore you with all the committees and boards that they put you on when you become mayor, but I enjoy it because I'm passionate about Ferndale, I'm passionate about public service and giving back, and this is my way to do it. And so I'm fortunate to be in a position to be able to have had all those experiences.
Thank you. Mr. Covey.
Yeah, I'd need more than a minute, but when I first ran for city council, I just want to share that I lost. And so for those who don't make this election, don't let it be your last. But I think the 8 years on city council were probably the most beneficial for me in terms of learning how to do the work up here. And I was really lucky to be mentored by Bob Porter, who's one of my favorite all-time admired political leaders. But like the mayor, I've been on every pension board and committee that there is, human relations up in Pontiac. I've been president of Ferndale Youth Assistance for the last couple years. I was president and founder of the Ferndale Community Foundation. So it's really all about listening and learning and experience, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
Okay, so I haven't served on any official board, but you could just say that I've been on the mother board. Okay. So, and you've heard of what a mother board is. Well, I'm the economical brainchild of the household, and the buck stops here with me. I've been fortunate enough to have my husband be the main income earner of our family. I do photography on the side, but so that doesn't bring in the money to pay the water bills and, you know, all the other bills we have, taxes and all that. So I'm very cost conscious and frugal, and I think that's what that's a really good board to be on, is the home board, the one that has to deal with the ins and outs of money and how it's spent and how it's not spent.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Coulter, and this will be the last question prior to the closing remarks. What is your vision for the future of Ferndale in, say, the next 10 years?
That's a great question. I see Ferndale as being an attractive place for young families to come. I see it as a place with strong neighborhoods. Downtown gets a lot of attention, but I think downtown is really the icing on the cake of what makes Ferndale special. I think strong neighborhoods are the foundation of this community, and I look forward to a community that has great parks. I started a Parks Commission this year where we're going to try to figure out improvements that we can make to our parks without spending tax dollars, so that we can make sure our parks are outstanding, our neighborhoods are strong, and it's attractive to businesses. As I've said, I want this to be the friendliest place for you to open or grow a business, but the reason that we need that strength is so that we attract families and young people and singles and anybody that wants to come here and be a part of our great community and contribute to what makes Ferndale so great. That's what I'd like to attract here in the next 10 years.
Thank you, Mr. Cubby.
I, too, would like to continue. You know, Ferndale became, over the last 2 decades, a city that really showed the whole region a new way of doing things. We were the mouse that roared, and lots of other towns and cities looked at us and said, wow, how do they do that? What are they doing? How cool is that? So I'd like to continue that work. It sounds hokey, but I think we are a shining city on a hill in Oakland and in the region. I'd like to encourage the celebration and continuation of our diversity. I think it's great. We have Native Americans who live here and Latino folks who want to come here and Asian American people who want to come here and all the different families. I do think it's important that we keep the town affordable. We will never be a Birmingham. We should not strive to be a Birmingham or even a Royal Oak. We've got to remember that there are young people who want to live here. There are young families that want to live here. There are seniors who'd like to live out their life here. And I think it's very, very important that we keep the place affordable. We made it walkable. We made a green city. I'd like to continue and make it even greener.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
Well, the vision I have for Ferndale is that we continue to be neighborly neighbors, and that we, you know, I'd love to see families continue to want to be here. I believe that we should have a good balance to our downtown, that it shouldn't go one way or another, but have a nice balance of what's being offered. And I think we should keep, you know, the artsy flow going that we have. We're unique and different, and I hope all these things happen, because I plan on staying here till they carry me out in the pine box, as they say.
Ms. Wells.
I would like to see a much more cohesive community, building on what we already have, where residents don't feel left out, the business community don't feel like they're a separate entity, that the government is not feeling that people don't understand us and what we have to do. And that's why I created the word trialogue. I would like to see something like the Block Club Network come back. Bit by bit, there are some block clubs. Well, there's some block clubs that one's the oldest one in the state, and very proud of it, and rightfully so. To see that happening more, to see businesses in other areas than just the downtown, and also to see businesses that brought in that help us be more self-reliant, and help us get some of the things that we need for every day without having to pay the high cost and use of fuels.
Thank you. That concludes the questions. The candidates will now give a 1-minute closing statement in reverse order, and we'll start with Ms. Wells.
All right. First, want to say that I got off the internet the tax rates for our southeast Oakland County, and Ferndale is in the middle. We do not have the highest taxes. If you have a 10% of a $500,000 house is going to bring more money into a community than 20% of a $200,000 house or a $100,000 house. And I'd like people to realize that. Ours are not the highest in the county. The trialogue I just mentioned again, I want people to feel welcomed, like Bob Porter did. He's a salesman. When people came in front of City Council, it was like, welcome to our store, what can I do to help you? And we're not getting as much of that as I would like to see. I'm a business person. I know about opening businesses, and I know that the city can do a little bit more on helping businesses, both at the DDA part and the counter upstairs as well. I want citizens to get explanations. There are a lot of things that are not explained as if you don't need to know or we don't have to tell you. I'm going to be the face of Ferndale as your mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Parton.
Well, you're informed. You've just heard what we think and what we're all about. Now it's up to you. What a unique and rare privilege in all the earth it is to be able to choose those who will represent you in office. After all, who is Caesar in this land? Is it Dave Coulter? Is it Rick Snyder? Is it Barack Obama? No, it's us. But only if we exercise our franchise and vote. Let everyone know how opinionated you are. Our last local election had 2,106 voters turn out of a possible 15,560 registered voters. Translated, that means candidates and issues were decided for you, not by you, if you chose not to vote. The League of Women Voters would like to change that, and I'm with them. We all have to vote for us to get a more true consensus of what most Ferndale residents want. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters once again for hosting this forum, and for you, the audience, for being there.
Thank you, Mr. Covey.
Thank you. Ferndale voters and taxpayers are very thoughtful and generous. In my 25 years here, voters have never said no to a bond issue, a school levy, or a millage request. We say yes to funding our schools, building our roads, and fixing our infrastructure. We said yes to the library, yes to the zoo, and yes to the DIA. But the pocketbooks and wallets of Ferndale residents are not limitless, particularly for those on fixed income, seniors and retired people, working families, young people, and students. We are all still hurting from the Great Recession of 2009. Elected leaders owe it to the taxpayers to be smart, diligent, and frugal with the funds entrusted to them to manage the city. We should not fund every study, analysis, consultant, and pet project that comes along. If the voters allow me to become mayor one more time, I'll strive to keep our city the progressive and popular place it has become while fighting to keep Ferndale affordable to all.
Thank you. Mr. Coulter.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for being here tonight. You know, I never dreamed 22 years ago when I moved here that I would be the mayor. It is a true honor and privilege that you have voted for me 2 years ago, and I ask you to do that again tonight. Ferndale faces a number of challenges over the next couple of years. I don't know what they all will be, and I don't have solutions to all of them, but I know this. We need a mayor who brings people together, unites the community, listens to all the voices, and makes decisions that work best for everybody. I'm proud to work on a council that works that way. I'm proud that every member of council has endorsed and supported me in this election because they know that I'm not somebody who thinks I have all the answers, but I'm somebody who reaches out and asks for opinions, and I do that throughout the community as well. We have a number of challenges, but I think the opportunities that are in front of Ferndale are tremendous. I think we are a unique and special city in this state. I am proud to be your mayor, and I ask for your support on November the 5th.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters is funded by donations from businesses and individuals. Membership is open to both men and women over the age of 18. If you're interested in learning how you can contribute or make an impact, pick up information on the table at the rear or visit our website, lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters, Oakland area, an organization that does not support or oppose any political candidate or party, would like to thank the audience, the candidates, city clerk, WFRN, and their staffs. This program will be rebroadcast daily at 6 a.m., noon, 6 p.m., and midnight on WFRN, WOW, Channel 10, Comcast 17, and AT&T Channel 99. And it's also available to view online anytime at www.ferndalemich.gov. For further information on the candidates, go to the League of Women Voters website and look at our voter guide, www.lwvoa.org. Don't forget to vote November 5th, 2013. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you and good night.
Good job. Good job. Nice job. Very nice.
Collecting all these, we'll be losing them again.